Delighted to welcome my next guest to the show. He's Major General Chapman. He's former head of counter-terrorism at the Ministry of Defence. Very good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
An awful lot to talk about. Can we just start briefly with Palestine Action, though? 522 people arrested by the police on Saturday for holding up signs saying, you know, I oppose genocide, I support Palestine Action, a proscribed terrorist organisation. Was that the right thing for the police to do? And was it right for the government to prescribe Palestine Action as a terrorist group?
Well, prescription means that you shouldn't show support overtly for a prescribed terrorist, terrorist entity, and they have been prescribed. So to say I support Palestine Action is an offence under the Terrorism Act 2000. What is unusual, possibly, under the way that they were prescribed is most people or most entities are prescribed for acts preparatory to terrorism or supporting terrorism overtly. Palestine Action was slightly different, that they were prescribed because of the serious damage to property, which is in the terrorist legislation 2000.
This was the attack which has been allegedly carried out by Palestine Action, because it's obviously going to court of the RAF planes.
Well, that's one of them, but there's, although it's a rarely used arm, it is in the legal definition, and more so than that, there is other intelligence which, because of the legal actions, can't be disclosed at the moment.
Right. So when the government, we've heard some, I mean, we understand that Keir Starmer has said privately, you know, look, people just don't realise how serious this organisation is. People think it's just a nice flag-wavy, worried about children dying of hunger in Gaza organisation, and it's not. It's very different from that.
Yeah, I think it is, but you can legally protest, but don't have those sorts of slogans in support of that.
You could argue that it shouldn't be prescribed, well, without saying I support Palestine Action, presumably.
Well, the High Court in July gave Palestine Action the right to challenge its prescription, and that will be also ongoing through the courts. That will look at that sort of Terrorism 2000 legislation, I think. Yeah. One of the things it does show you, though, that legislation prescription by itself is no panacea to mobilisation of people on the streets. No. Is what we saw for this.
No, indeed. It's interesting. A guest, a former Labour, now he's left Labour. They're too moderate for him. But a guest earlier was talking about how you know this was just a classic, you know, Labour government. Basically, they're, you know, beholden to the Israeli government and you know, trying to quell the opposition. Of course, I would say this government has been not supportive enough of our democratic ally in the Middle East. What do you make of the UK joining other usual suspect countries condemning Israel's plan for a new operation in Gaza? Do you think that Netanyahu's plan to basically seize control of Gaza City and eventually occupy the whole of Gaza, he says, then, you know, to root out Hamas, hopefully find the hostages who are remaining, some 22 who believed still to be dead, and then hand over control to a civilian Arab ruling body as yet unnamed. Do you think that is unworkable? Do you think it's desirable? Is Britain right to criticise it?
Well, let's look at what the Israeli objectives have always been since the 7th of October 23. They've had 4. The first one is the release of the hostages. There are still at least 20 who are alive, along with a number who are dead. The second one is to secure their borders. The third one is to destroy Hamas's military capabilities. And the final one is the collapse of Hamas governance. Yeah. To achieve the third one, destroying Hamas military capabilities, they believe that they are required to go into Gaza City, into 2 areas there in the north of the city and the central camps to achieve that mission. The difficult one is where that leads the hostages, and certainly what you have seen in the last week is a slight disruption in what we would call the strategy bridge between political intent and military power, where, for example, Lieutenant General Zamir, who's the chief of the defense staff in Israel, has said that this will potentially trap the Israeli military. Yeah. Lead to harm to the hostages. The key answer to that at the end of the day is we'll have to wait and see.
And that is ultimately a political decision. I mean, look, we ostensibly would never have done any of those prisoner exchanges. We would never have got, if it had happened to us, we wouldn't have a single hostage back from Hamas if it had happened to us, because we don't negotiate with terrorists, but everyone insists that Israel does.
Yeah, and that's the key point, that even though Lieutenant General Samir has sort of said this might be slightly difficult, in all wars are fought for political objectives, and
Yeah.
the military is subordinate to the political arm, and he will turn to the right, salute, and get on with it, which is what he's doing.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, again, it's a very difficult. It is a quagmire, and again, the reason why Israeli forces left, Gaza and Hamas took over in 2005 was because they didn't want to get bogged down in this. And again, we know there's a lot of dissent in Israel as well. Is it helpful for the British government, French governments, Canadians, or others to say we would recognise a Palestinian state, regardless of whether the Hamas hostages are released or not, thereby completely derailing any negotiations for a ceasefire that were already in place? And for us to criticise Israel, because there seems to be remarkably little criticism of Hamas, or indeed the Arab states that have been supporting Hamas in the past.
Well, two things can be true at the same time. You can criticise Israel but still believe that they have a right to self-defense. So, for example, Article 34 of the Geneva Convention says that taking hostages is a war crime. So, I'd like to see more overt condemnation of Hamas for that.
Yeah, and so is putting your military, underneath hospitals or schools or civilian areas.
Yeah, but if, for example, and I don't necessarily think this is true, that Israel were to use the withdrawal of humanitarian support, food, that would also be a war crime. I think that the thing that which we're seeing really is, we often say that wars are fought three times. Firstly, on the battlefield, secondly, in memory, thirdly, in the information domain. Yeah. I think what is crucial now is that Netanyahu has said that the Israeli military, must allow more foreign journalists in at the moment. And I think we'll get more ground truth if that comes to pass, rather than relying on sort of Hamas information ops, which is, I think, a lot of what we're seeing.
Oh, I mean, we're just seeing, that's the thing, but it's not publicised. When the BBC and others put out footage, they're not pointing out this is only being given to us with permission from Hamas.
Yeah, that's right. And so you'd like to see more balance. And I think Israel have been remiss in not allowing that. You would then get into the problems of what is proportionate and necessary in achieving their military objectives.
Well, if we'd been fighting the Second World War, with camera phones in every person's hand, we would be condemned on a daily basis for what we did. No war survives the camera phone constantly on, because war is, well, you know from more experience than I do, war is brutal and brutish, and horrible things happen. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a war crime, though.
Yeah, and I think two of the things which have been missed here is we often talk about precaution and distinction. So distinction should be between military and civil targets, and precaution is, do the Israelis give a warning to people to get out if they're prosecuting military operations? The answer to that is they generally do, and
in a way that no other government has ever done.
Yeah, and the fact that Hamas have not allowed the civilian people to go is because they're seen as collateral damage, which can be used in information ops. So, I think the Israelis have done everything they can, sort of.
And the ratio of civilian deaths to combatant deaths. I mean, 1.3 civilians dying for every combatant they believe they've attacked, and even on Hamas's own figures. So, 4 civilians have died, sadly, for every 3 Hamas terrorists they have caught. I mean, we would dream in any British military operation of such statistics.
Well, I think people have to go back to when you were fighting what is essentially a total war in that region, as it was, for example, in Normandy 44. I think we killed something like 20,000 French civilians in the preparatory bombing for Normandy. Yeah. If you're prosecuting those operations, these things can happen. We want to try and minimise it.
100%.
Procedures do that, but sometimes the reality is slightly different.
Yeah. And of course, the answer is Hamas doesn't do the October 7th attack, and having done it, they hand over the hostages, they give up their arms, and to seize control of the Gaza territory, and then the war could be over tomorrow. So we all know how to end that war, don't we? Just finally, I want to ask you one other question. The Chagos Islands deal, terrible deal. I do not know why we're giving the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. They've never had a claim on them. Absolute nonsense. Even any claim on international law, absolute nonsense. And yet we're told the deal was going to cost £3.4 billion. That has been exposed as absolute nonsense. It's more than 10 times that. It's 35 billion quid, according to information under Freedom Information Act revelations. I mean, this is an astonishing amount of money to give away something we already own, isn't it?
Well, I think there are 3 points here. The first one is that we, under UN General Assembly Resolution 2066, we didn't respect the territorial integrity of Mauritius when we gave them independence in 1965. We took the Chagos Islands off them. That was against what we would say territorial.
They didn't own them then. They didn't own them. Mauritius has never had control of the Chagos Islands.
It's part of their territorial integrity, though, so it was part of what they should have been
French
doing.
territory.
And that was a diplomatic mistake. The second diplomatic mistake, of course, was expelling the Chagosians in between 71 and 73. What we're really playing with these figures is arcane government finance rules and how you look at profiling things over a number of years. What the purist would say that accrual accounting in terms of resource accounting and budgeting, because that's what I did when I was running the budget in Northern Ireland as a chief of staff, would have the upfront costs. The government have not chosen to do that. They've used a social time preference rate, which takes inflation over 99 years into account. Therefore, that's how they come up.
That's how they come up with these figures. But we're still going to end up paying for it. Major General Chapman, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate that. Sam Armstrong, I mean, it is only this government could spend 35 billion giving away something that we already own. We've got no reason to give. It's not giving it back to Mauritius. They've never owned it. They've got no right to it. It's absolute nonsense.
Yeah, and the worst is yet to come. This is a government that's still negotiating with the EU. This is a government that has never met, a bunch of international lawyers that it doesn't wish to cave into. And I remind everyone, it's August, it's summer, it's the holiday season, but we've still got another 4 years of this.
Don't.
4 more years.
Deep sighs,
Julia.
everyone.